This On the Whistle live special show. We're coming live directly after Morocco have won their opening game against the Comoros in Rabat. We have the one, we have the only, we have Alistair Howarth, our traveling cross platform reporter, who is in the stadium, who is coming live from the game, who'll be getting all the reaction afterwards. Ali, amazing opening ceremony, pouring with rain. You've got the bigwigs of world football in terms of officials. You've got the prince who was also in there, and then a game that I think lived up to expectations in the sense that the weather wasn't great, but boy oh boy was a good quality on display.
Yeah, Zain is an interesting one because you we've been building up to this for so long, right? Morocco has been building up to this. Africa has been building up to this. In many ways, the world has been building up to this because this is a team, this is a country that has been in the world's eye. Morocco has done a lot to invest in football to be considered amongst the best in the world, and they actually are. For the first time, I think an African team is being considered in that realm. And so there was huge pressure. And Zayn, let's not forget this 50 years since Morocco last won the AFCON. They've only got one to their name, something that all their neighbors remind them of on the daily. And so there's so much pressure. And then you get the sense that this is a Morocco trying to build a narrative, build a picture of what it is to be Moroccan. This is the first tournament I've ever been to where the head of state goes onto the pitch to greet everyone. The Crown Prince Moulay Hassan goes and greets every single player, the Comorians and then the Moroccans. He goes and does the ceremonial kickoff. Obviously, as we expect, Infantino and our friend Dr. Motsepe are there to give the speeches. And so Zain, the real sense in the stadium was they had to get it right, because if they didn't win, Zain, if it kind of all falls apart, this sense that we're this huge nation, we're this huge team, that we're bigging ourselves up in a way that very few other nations would, and then you fall flat and it falls apart. Now that is not what happened. Zain. It felt like it was going to. The first half was struggle for Morocco. They struggled to break down Comoros, and Comoros played their part in defending that. But then in the second half, we saw the kind of the release and the relief in many ways of like, okay, now we can relax. Now we can enjoy the AFCON. We're not stressed about getting it over the line. And so I think it was in many ways the perfect opening game. Look, the pressure's always on, but really your first game as the host, as the favorites, you just want to get the win. And I think that's how the team will feel. How the nation feels is maybe a little different. We were trying to discuss it upstairs with some of the other journalists, like, as a Moroccan fan, do you feel like this was a good result versus how does Walid Regragui see this as a good result? So I think there is a tension there, but I think on the whole, it's a very good first game. That second half, Morocco were excellent, and Ayub Al Kabi, I don't know
I
if
mean,
we'll
that
see
goals,
a better
I mean, the
opening goal than Zayn.
commentators are already saying that is in contention for goal of the tournament. Comes on as
100%.
substitute, pouring with rain, give, get, beautiful overhead. If you haven't gone and seen it, get onto social media and go and watch it. It
And
was
Zayn,
a banger.
Zayn, this is El Kabi's calling card. He's probably scored a dozen of these in his career. There's literally, we were looking it up after
A
the
dozen.
goal in
No
the
way.
stadium. You can look up on YouTube Ayub El Kabi overhead free kick, bicycle kicks. It's like 8 or 9 minutes long or something. This guy's been doing
Is
this
this like
for,
his party
for
trick? I wouldn't have known
it
that, right?
literally is, Zayn. It literally is, and he broke it out in the biggest stage of all. So I think it's great, and I'm very happy for him because he's someone who has been very. I think there's been a lot of he splits opinion in Morocco. I think he's really most known for his 2018 World Cup, where he was the star center forward, and he missed so many chances in that World Cup that Morocco didn't get out of the group as they should have. And so that's kind of been the tag that he's carried with him, is like the guy who's good but misses all these chances. And so for him to be the one who comes on for Rahimi and score a goal like that, wow, Zayn, wow, those are the moments we live for in these kind of tournaments, man. They're the moments that define a tournament, and wow, what a goal, what a
Absolutely.
goal.
And I got to say, Ali, I mean, it was an absolutely amazing game of football. I mean, the perfect start for the Moroccans. But I have to ask you, I mean, the Comoros often say they are like when you play them, it is a case of going to the dentist and sitting in that dentist chair. Did you feel that they sort of lived up to that expectations? I mean, Pando on goal, exquisite, saving the penalty early on. I mean, showed that they came to play. I mean, they were trying to do it on transition, trying to do it on the counter attack. But what was it like in the stadium? Because they must have been intimidated by that atmosphere.
Yeah, yeah, and I wondered. I was kind of a penny for their thoughts for when they were just standing around and the prince was greeting all the Moroccans, and you just got all the Comorians just standing, being like, can we play the game now? We've built up to this. What's going on?" No, I think Comoros played their part. Look, Zane, this is the one of the bigger David and Goliath you'll ever get. In the Comorians back line, I think they had a guy from Ligue 2 in France, they had a guy in the fourth tier of France, and they had a guy in the
Mm.
second tier of Belgium. And as you know, as Stefano Cousin, their coach, told us when he came on the podcast, was it last week, 2 weeks ago, he made it very clear. Look, we've never beaten Morocco. We've never beat Zambia. We've never beaten Mali. Okay, we are the underdogs. But that pressure thing was what he talked about. He was like, in that game against Morocco, we just have to survive, and the pressure builds. We just have to survive, and that's kind of how it was going. So I think, you have to give a lot of credit for Comoros. Look, it's a very tough group. I'm not sure if they'll get out of it, but I think they did themselves credit. And
Mm.
for me, the one thing I loved seeing was, 2021 Comoros did the unthinkable, right? They come to that AFCON, they knock out Ghana, they get out of the group, they push Cameroon when they don't even have a goalkeeper, and they only lose, what was it, 2-1. They didn't have fans in Cameroon, and
Mm.
because of COVID, because Cameroon's a more difficult place to get to. There's a lot of Comorians who live here in Morocco, a
I
lot of
wouldn't have known that.
students. Yeah, a lot of students, I think in El Jadida in particular, go to university here. And then obviously a lot of Moroccans or Comorians live in Marseille. Marseille is Little Comor, Little Grand Comore, I think is what
Mm.
they call it. And so to see those fans, yes, there was maybe 1,000 of them, a couple thousand, to see their fans. And we were speaking to a lot. They said, look, there's a lot of more Comorians here. We couldn't get tickets for the first game. So for the second and third game, you'll see a lot more Comorians in the stadium. But for me, I think that's a special moment because, they didn't get to see the greatest moment in their country's footballing history, sporting history even, in Cameroon. And so for them to be able to be there to celebrate, to enjoy it was, yeah, it was wonderful to see.
Now, Alistair, we're going to be doing these hot takes all throughout the tournament about on certain games. And if you have any questions, put them in the comments. Whether you're consuming on Facebook or YouTube or Riverside or even on TikTok, let us know what you think. We'd love to hear your opening hot takes on the game like ours. And Ali, I mean, look, this is a good start for Regragui. This is a good start for Morocco. Helps alleviate the pressure. One would have expected them to have won this opening game in many ways. They're on team, on paper, the strongest team here. You mentioned the pressure on them. I mean, this has got to be a wonderful release of that pressure. And maybe, with those other upcoming games against Zambia and Mali, who obviously will give them maybe a sterner test than others in the group, not taking anything away from Zambia. Um, you have to imagine that that's going to help. But remember what happened to the Ivory Coast? They won the opener.
This is exactly what we were saying. This is exactly what Ivory Coast. They beat the worst team in the group, 2-0 in the first game. Not a great performance, but second half goals ease the burden. Things are okay. Then they come up against the second seed. That for Cote d'Ivoire it was Nigeria, and for Morocco it's Mali. We don't want to speak too soon, but I think it'll be interesting. I think Mali, I think for me in particular, there's a lot of question marks, both good
Mhm.
and bad. I think for their team that I'm like, so far they've shown in the World Cup qualifiers, in the AFCON qualifiers, and in the last AFCON that they have become this team that's very good at beating the teams below them. They're very, very good at that. They become a really solid team. Tom Sampierre had a slow start, but he's gotten his feet under the ground. I think he's doing very well. But they really struggled against those bigger teams. And, we saw it against Ghana in the World Cup qualifiers. We saw it when they came up against Cote d'Ivoire in the AFCON. When they play against the teams that are just a tier above them, because they're close to that top tier, that's when they struggle. And so for me, that's the big question for Mali. And we'll perhaps that will be answered against Zambia, but we'll have some questions answered. Look, for Morocco, it's yeah, that I think the monkey is off the chest, right? Like they've got the job done, and I think we oftentimes in these tournaments look at these big teams and not overanalyze, but think of their performances as being too valuable. Look, Zane, this is
Mm.
tournament football. What matters is getting the job done. What matters is getting over the line. What matters is getting past those tough games. And so for me, I think you have to take the courage from that as a Moroccan. And you have to look at Comoros and say, look, this is a team that in AFCON qualifiers beat Tunisia for the at home for the first time in over a decade. Comoros, for me, are the strongest fourth seeded team. Mozambique maybe would have an argument with that, but for me, the Comoros are probably the strongest fourth seeded team. So I think that for the Moroccans, yes, you can point to some performance and say, look, Sofiane Rahimi, he was very good up until the penalty miss, and then he had a very bad game. And you look at Saibari, he came in for really the first time in this kind of capacity in a big game, didn't really perform. So you can point to these things, and then also I think the other big question for Morocco is now, okay, Romain Saiss, would he start? That was a big question. He's been injured a lot. Is he going to come back? He comes back and is immediately injured. That is a big loss. Even though he's not the player he once was, he's still the captain. He's still a leader, and he's still a very good player. I think there are still questions around Morocco, but job done. Good first game to get out of the way. Zain, but there's one thing I did want to talk about, which is a little unrelated, and that is, Zain, to be honest, I was disappointed with the atmosphere. I was disappointed.
Well, let's get something up there. I mean, your North African atmospheres are normally tifos. It looks a little bit like continental football. I mean, that's the North African style, and it can be quite intense, quite hostile. Are you saying shock horror in an AFCON game is more corporate? AFCON opener.
and Zain, it's interesting because even Walid Regragui pointed it out in his press conference yesterday. He said, if you're not coming here to fight, if you're not coming here to be a part of this team, if you're coming here to, well, I don't think he actually said this part, but take selfies, post on Instagram, whatever, don't come. He said that, and he said it before. He said it in the past. If you're not here to fight for Morocco, don't come. And yeah, it was disappointing because like you said, we've seen these Wydad games, we've seen these Raja games, we've seen Asfar Rabat games, pumping atmosphere, the energy. That even I would argue in Qatar it was better, but here, disappointing. Obviously it was a bit more of a party atmosphere. It was a bit more, like happy-go-lucky, but there wasn't the. Zain, I'll be honest. When Comoros were on the ball, they weren't whistled, and for me, that is the staple of a good Moroccan crowd. Even the WAFCON that we've been to, the crowds were more aggressive. So that was disappointing.
I was going to say on TV, I saw a couple of lasers going in on.
There were a couple
on Pandor in goal, so it felt like they were there. And my experience of the Moroccan fans was probably for the first time in 2018 at the Russia World Cup. And they were colorful, and they had song, and they would march on the Luzhniki. It was actually amazing to see that. And I think it was a wonderful reminder to those in Africa and beyond that this is a football nation first and foremost, right? So maybe we're not seeing that maybe at this game, but hopefully as the tournament goes, we see those ultras and diehards emerge.
And Zain, this is an undercurrent and maybe a story to keep an eye out for. Is this has been coming, and there's a lot of tension in the footballing world in Morocco between Rabat, where this game is, where the national team is based, where they play all the games, and Casablanca.
Casablanca, right?
Yeah. And shout out to Maher Mazahi who pointed this out to me, but I think it was a Casablanca-based newspaper did this satirical post of an image, and it was like on the one hand it was Casablanca, it was tifos, flags, flares, everything. On the other side it was just a bunch of people in suits sat down, very polite, and it was like Rabat versus Casablanca. And when you speak to people here in Morocco, particularly people connected to those clubs, there is a very strong sense that Morocco is trying to clean up its image for the rest of the world, particularly the West. And part of that cleaning up of the image is trying to reduce the power of Casablanca, it's taking away Wydad and Raja, to the point where, both teams didn't play in the Mohammed VI Stadium last season. And now if you ask Morocco, they say they're refurbishing it. If you ask Wydad and Raja fans, they say they refurbished it, but didn't put us back in. Things like that. And of course, Morocco are playing, if they top their group, they'll play every single game in the Moulay Abdallah Stadium. Now, Zain, don't get me wrong, I'm in the stadium right now, and in the bowels of it. Superb stadium, state of the art, incredible stadium. It does not have the cultural heart that the Mohammed VI in Casablanca does, and the fact that Rabat is a very small city, Casablanca is the main city here, 8 million people or whatever it is. There is that tension of saying by taking football to Rabat instead of Casablanca, it's a representation of what Morocco is doing, is kind of gutting out its heritage, its
football culture. Now, look, that's maybe a more pessimistic view on it. And look, I think people based in Rabat maybe would push back on that and say, look, we were good fans as well. But it is interesting to note that part of the build up to this AFCON was like, wow, the atmosphere is going to be amazing. It's going to be, to be honest, I think I was more impressed with the Ivorians so far. Now, things can change. When we get to knockouts, things can change. But I would say, for the Moroccan team, 7, 8 out of 10 for the Moroccan atmosphere. Given the high expectations we have, maybe 5 out of 10. I was a little disappointed.
Okay, Ali, let's bring it back to matters on the pitch. Let's talk about some players that impressed us. I was totally blown away by Pandor. Again, I know we need to pick a Comoros player, but he was tested, he was put under threat, and he stood there and saving a penalty in Rabat in the opening game that was struck decently. Okay, we can have a discussion of whether it should have been a sweeter or gone the other side, but to save a penalty, I always think you got to give the keeper more credit than the attacker. So again, just totally impressed by Yannick Pandor. From your perspective, I mean, maybe we'll start with Morocco. Which of the Moroccan players really caught your attention and you thought stood up? I mean, is Diaz a natural starting point?
Yeah, I mean, obviously Diaz was good. He scores the goal, but I think one of the things that made Moroccan football so good, particularly at the 2022 World Cup, was that right side, right? You had Hakimi, you had Unahi, and you had Ziyech, and they combined so well. The triangles, whether it was Hakimi underlapping or overlapping behind Ziyech, they just had such an amazing understanding. And so, yeah, one of our questions coming into this game was, okay, this is a completely new right side, because yes, Unahi is still there, but he drifted into the left. He was a bit not quite as involved on the right side as he traditionally would have been. Obviously, Ziyech is gone. You've got Brahim Diaz, who's a player similar caliber as Ziyech, and you've got Mazraoui instead of Hakimi. But for me, that went flyingly well. That Diaz was the same. He was very similar to Ziyech. He didn't come in essentially as much as we thought. He hugged the touchline. He let Mazraoui come inside him. Then he would cut inside. So I think for me, he was good. For me, the ones who were the best though was Mazraoui on the one side and Salahadin on the left back. Those two were so good, kind of getting down into good positions, crosses from deep. And one thing we were saying at halftime was like, oh man, this is not the game for Rahimi up front. He's a guy who wants to run into the channels. He's a guy who's a great runner. But they need someone to cross to. They need an El Khabi. They need an Nesri, because Mazraoui and Salahadin were superb. Now, Zain, that brings into a very important question. What happens when Hakimi comes back? Because as we know, Hakimi is the probably best defender in the world. How fit he'll be for the next games, we're not sure. If he comes back, will he be better than Mazraoui, a half-fit Hakimi at right back? Who knows? Will Mazraoui, because usually Mazraoui then shifts to left back, but will he be better than Salahadin, who's been very good? Who knows? So I think strong performances raise questions in many ways for me with the Moroccan team.
No, I think it's great, and it's wonderful to be in that position. You got to imagine Hakimi starts to play off the bench, and then, I mean, look, it depends when he comes back, right? But, I mean, if he's fit and ready for the final, he starts. Come on. Like, this is a non-discussion in my book.
Yeah.
Look, I don't know how much longer we have with you, Ali, but obviously it's a fantastic start for the hosts. It's probably where they want to be. I mean, what is the area that maybe you would think they'd be most concerned about? I mean, they did struggle against a Comoros team that they were quite favored to beat, but, the Comoros set themselves up defensively really well and were looking to hit on the counter-attack, and Pandor, played out of his socks. But is that maybe a concern that they weren't able to break down a team like the Comoros relatively?
Yeah, I think so. Maybe it's a bit of that, like, okay, where was the creativity? Because in the first half they created very little. They created very little. I think for me the bigger question mark is at center back, because we saw a couple times once Comoros had to play Maulida getting in behind, Rafik Said, who I thought had a very good game playing up front by himself. He's not a center forward, so for him to do that job. But when they get that pace turning, Aguerd and Saiss or El Yamik, whoever it is playing there, they do struggle. And, Zain, you'll know better than most when seeing Evidence Makopa score against Morocco in that kind of same place, like in getting that little quick pass into his feet next to the Moroccan center backs. So for me, that's a big question is, and obviously that won't be answered against Comoros. And that's the kind of the beauty of international football in these tournaments, right? Is that answer will never be answered until it is, right? Like until they come up against Nigeria in the semifinals or whenever it is, and Osimhen gets that, won't know if they're vulnerable to that. So for me, there are still questions. I don't think it removes them as the favorites. I think they are still the favorites, and we saw the kind of depth they have with El Capi coming on as Azuli. These guys can come on and turn the game on its head. So for me, honestly, it, it's not. There's very few negatives for me. I think maybe Moroccan fans will feel differently. They feel like they should have hammered Comoros, but I think actually you have to be realistic. You have to be pragmatic. You don't win tournaments by being the best team or playing, sexy football. You win it by being hard to beat and scoring goals in important moments and being lucky. That's the reality.
Well, Ali, we like to say we're Africa's biggest Brian. You can find us at OTW_podcast on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, on X. I mean, that's Twitter, right? TikTok. And of course, you can search for the On the Whistle podcast on YouTube and Facebook. We have Sego Dirmitsa, sorry if I'm saying that incorrectly, who's posted a comment into our live feed. You can have a look at it. Ali, let me read you what the comment was. Morocco is not the same without the Hakimi. I didn't see the overload that Unahi, Hakimi, and Ziyech did. Break low block and rest defense was not good in the press, was not good. I saw Comoros coming out of the press. We also have Lee Writes a Lot saying Al Kabi looks so much better in comparison to 2018. Listen, guys, we love hearing from you. We are around this braai, so keep the comments going. Ali, let me get your hot takes to those reactions.
Yeah, I mean, they've kind of touched on the things we've touched on, right? Like Sagoda is talking about how that Onahi, Ziyech, Hakimi kind of axis is so important, and that's gone now. And I will say I was maybe a bit disappointed with Onahi. I don't think he was one who I've been super excited to watch because I think he's been superb at Girona, and I think that this is kind of his chance to re-enter our imagination after being so brilliant at the 2022 World Cup. So I would say, yeah, spot on. Like, yeah, I think. Yeah, I would say at times the rest defense wasn't amazing and the pressing wasn't brilliant. I would counter that and say the counter pressing was very good. Comoros really struggled to get it out. But I will say when particularly Mchangama could get on the ball in deep positions, he could once or twice find Rafiki Said with that pace. Again, I think that is where Morocco are a little bit vulnerable on the break, on the counter attack. And so, again, we'll see bigger tests, against Zambia and certainly against Mali. But there are vulnerabilities now. I think, they're a solid side still. And yeah, I mean, you're right, but that's exactly what we're talking about, right? Al Kabi, what a redemption story for him after that 2018 World Cup when he was so woeful in front of goal for him to score a banger like that. And it's great to see. It's what you want to see.
Absolutely. And, I just want to read you another comment. I mean, they're coming in thick and fast now, which is great because we are Africa's biggest braai. For those of you who don't know what a braai is, it's a place we can get to, we can eat, we can break bread, we eat lots of meat. As I said to Mimi, one of the best African football broadcasters, presenters, and a Nigerian football expert in South Africa. We even put chicken on the braai for the vegetarians. And she reminded me she only eats vegetables. How sad is your life? Love you though, Mimi. So let's see what RRC Fitness Club 8708 says. Ashraf benchmark. The Moroccan right wing is more for playing for AFCON football than Brahim Diaz. Because Brahim Diaz is too selfish, loses too many balls, and doesn't track back Moroccan defense. Yaya Jibrane is in need. The Morocco team and Mohamed Chibili is more suit for AFCON football than Mazraoui. Thank you for the comment. Ali, what's your reaction, brother?
I presume you're referring to Bencharky. I think benchmark must be a typo. No, it's a typo. I think it's a typo on RSS Fitness Club. I mean, I think that's a little harsh on Diaz. I think you won, and yes, I don't think Diaz is necessarily sparkled to the same way that the expectations are on him, but I think he is capable of moments of magic, and that's what you want in a play like that. And I would say Ziyech was similar, right? Like he has these moments where he creates these chances. He was a bit more of a creator than Diaz, but he also gives the ball away a lot. He also is a little profligate. And I think you have to find that balance of those teams in your team of like having those players whilst those players are tidy in behind them, or having those players that can rotate the ball. Yeah, Giovanni. Look, I'm as a big fan of, and clearly as our fitness club is big fan of CAF Champions League football, of African club football. I always wanted to see Giovanni more in the Moroccan team. I think for me, what he's a little too similar to Amrabat for me. And so when you have Amrabat, you can't play Jabran as well. You can't have him really in the team because they fulfill that same role, that sitting defender who's good at cycling the ball. And so you then want to have those two creators, especially against the Comoros. Look, it might be a little different against a bigger team, but I think that is the midfield you want to go for. LA Uni and whatnot, ahead of your man Amrabat. I think those are, I love the references because I love anyone who's gonna talk about bringing in these CAF Champions League legends, because they are, especially Jabran with that.
Ali, I think we've probably got a few more minutes before I have to let you go and do some work. The big story this week has been the African Cup of Nations moving to 4 years post 2028. I mean, on the evidence of tonight, this has got to be a 2-year tournament, right?
Nonsense. I mean, for me, no, this doesn't benefit anyone aside from the European clubs, aside from FIFA. I think having it every 4 years and not in odd years is interesting, because I think it then allows for the Club World Cup to become a biannual tournament to happen every 2 years in the odd years, which I think would align very well with FIFA's goals. Not so much with Africa's, and so I think it's disappointing to see it's not what we want to see. The way it's, and I think as much as you can, because I think we can have a conversation, right, and say, look, okay, maybe the AFCON should be every 4 years, maybe it should be, maybe we don't need it to be. That is a conversation we can have. I disagree with it, because I think that actually everything that they were saying that the Nations League brings in, the AFCON already fulfills. Having the best teams playing each other. We're so lucky in this continent where our best teams already play each other very regularly, at every AFCON. But anyway, we can have that conversation. But the way this has happened is what is a huge problem, right? This was a top-down decision. The federations were not involved in this decision. This was a FIFA decision that then CAF has rolled out. And I think it's important we keep talking about it, because also, Zain, let's be honest, this is almost certainly strategically told to us right before the AFCON, because then we'll forget about it, because the AFCON's amazing, and we'll forget about everything because the AFCON does that to you, as it should. So I think for me, it's a terrible decision. I think we need to do a pod on it just to really chow into it, because it's a lot to get through. I also don't even physically know if there's enough room in the calendar for this Nations League that they're talking about, because you're talking about September and October, but then that leaves you only 2 windows, and because obviously the November window is disappearing. So it's like, okay, you have 2 windows to do all of your World Cup and AFCON qualifying. It's not possible. So a lot of problems for me, Zain, and I'm not super impressed.
Well, listen, there's so little meat on the bone. It's very hard for us to really come out and present another side to CAF other than, like you say, this feels like a FIFA/European decision that's been foisted upon our leaders who have accepted it. And I have done a column, Alistair, that you have not proofread yet, that's going out tomorrow on my Substack called The Other Side. And I've titled it, This is the Colonization of African Football. So if you want to find out more about that, please take a read, subscribe. It's very easy to find, The Other Side on Substack. And I will put it also on our various platforms. Ali, I know I keep telling you you're going to go, but I'm running this to add it on time. We've had some wonderful reaction. We've had, I'll get some of these comments up so you can see them. We've had RCC Fitness Club 878 say, I need to see Imam Ashore and Mofakeng bring goals and flair to AFCON football.
And he's talking about Sifo Mbule as well. Okay, yes, this is what I like to hear. Bring me these kind of CAF Champions League ballers. Although maybe Sifo is not a CAF Champions League baller. This is not. I don't want to take too many shots at Pirates, but this is fantastic. Keep telling me these things. Fitness club.
we also have Kamanga Luxman say Morocco showed glimpses of what they could become, provided that Wally Regragui finds the best combination of profiles in the 11. Today was an underwhelming performance in possession. And then we had our RRC Fitness Club 878 come back to us, and he's loving this. Unai is a quality central midfielder, quality only together with MasterChef Mbuli. Uh, then we have the very same person say, is Munir Chur a Moroccan by nationality? Ali, I'm not sure actually.
I'm not actually sure. Actually, yeah, same.
Yeah.
I'd have to check that.
Yeah. Well, listen, I'll give us our last comment because I know you got to run, but Regraggy knows best. I think he gambled a bit too much today, leaving Al Kabi and Niseri on the bench. I didn't personally understand it. And that was from Kamange Laxman. And finally, we'll give the final word to RSS Fitness Club 8708. Is Mamadou Lamine Kamara of RS Berkane going to play AFCON? Well, you'll have to watch us to find out more. Ali, I know you're going to run to get to that press
Yeah,
conference.
sorry guys, I have to try and join people.
Post your comments, get to us. We will get to you. Ali, thank you for joining us live, and I can't wait to chop it up with you tomorrow. Take care, brother.
Cheers, guys.
So, guys, we're saying goodbye to Alistair right now, but thank you to all of our community who joined. We're going to be here every night. We're going to be chopping it all up, wherever you are, right? Alistair, he is in Rabat. He's going to be in Morocco. He's going to be at all the big games. I'm doing this virtually, as you can see. My Christmas tree is behind me. The stockings are there. And we love to hear from you. My name is Zain Nabi, Alistair Howarth, myself, Francis Nkwayin. We host the wonderful podcast that is known as On the Whistle. Please subscribe and like us on YouTube. Please. It helps people find the show, share the content. We cover all things African football because we truly believe in the Pan-African philosophies. And we think that our greatest diplomats are our footballers because they take Africa to the world. And of course, there's Lawrence Kohler. There's lots of other people who join us on a really good friends. How can I forget Fredos Munda, our women's football editor. If you like African football, we say join us around this braai. Come and talk to us. Come and let us know what you think. Again, we're getting more comments here saying Zizou is going to expose Modiba's defensive flaws. In your dreams, RRC Fitness Club, you will find that I am a very loyal Bafana Bafana fan. And as you know, Bafana Bafana fans, we're very one-eyed. We've got another one coming in. Let's post this up. We have Niki Bajwaja 4723. My beloved Super Eagles haven't had a midfield for nearly a decade now. That's quite harsh. I think you guys have had it in midfield. I don't think that's quite the same. But if anybody else agrees or disagrees out there, drop your comments in here. Guys, we're going to have to call it a do, but it was fantastic interacting with you. We loved chopping it all up. Leave your comments, leave your views, like and share. Salah Gashle, that means goodbye in Zulu in South Africa, where I'm from. We can't wait to do this with you tomorrow.